everyone. My name is Mr. Aquaman, and welcome to the KoloCast, a show hosted by myself and the man over there, the myth. Nah, I'm just messing with you guys. It's Flashyy. What's going on, Flashyy?
Dude, how are you gonna gas me up like that and then just take it away? All right, well, anyway, we're just gonna forget that happened. Welcome back to the KoloCast, guys. We got an interesting one today. We're changing it up a little bit. We're gonna be talking about some things slightly outside of the FGC, but I'm excited. We got a really awesome guest today. Aquaman, bring him in. Tell them who we got today.
Oh, we have a wonderful guest, and honestly, it ties into kind of a lot of what the Kolosseum has been about, which is, I built the Kolosseum off a couple of things, and one of them is not just talent with inside the games, but also outside of the games. And our guest here, CloudScorpion, happens to kind of be a bit of both, which is what's really exciting for me today. If you guys don't know, he is I want to say the co-founder. CloudScorpion, am I right on that? Co-founder of Last Shot Studios, currently making a video game titled The Cartesian Project, as well as a Mortal Kombat player and longtime supporter of not just the Kolosseum, but kind of all of competitive Mortal Kombat. And so, CloudScorpion, first thing I got to say is thank you so much. And I know you've been around for a long time, and I want you to tell us a little bit about yourself, man. So let it rip.
So first I'm going to start with no, thank you guys, because if you guys aren't doing stuff, there's nothing to support. There's no scene, there's no nothing. So you don't need to thank me. I'm just trying to, I'm doing what supporters should do and trying to make sure the content continues to exist. That's really all I'm doing. You're the one putting in the work. Let's be fair.
Well, I'll take all the gas up I can get, but thank you so much. And CloudScorpion, tell us about yourself. How did you start your journey here in particularly the NRS community, which is what even we're known for?
Yeah. So I've been playing Mortal Kombat for a long time. I've been playing since I was about 8 years old. To give reference, that's 24 years ago. That's actually when I got my username, CloudScorpion. I have rocked this for 24 years. I'm 32 if you're trying to do the math.
Thank you for that. I was like,
I was actually trying to do that. I'm not even going to sit here. I'm not denying it. I'm not denying it.
So yeah, I've been rocking the username CloudScorpion for that long. Got that name back when I was trying to sign up for a Mortal Kombat 3 forum because I was a big fan of Scorpion. So naturally, being an 8-year-old and being an idiot, I was like, well, I'll make my username Scorpion, and that clearly didn't work. Then I tried, Storm Scorpion, and that didn't work. And then eventually, I just kind of kept going down the line till I got to Cloud Scorpion, and that one worked, and I decided to stick with it for the rest of my life. So that's the origin story of that name. Not as amazing as you might expect. But yeah, so I've been playing. I'm
sorry, real quick. All I see is the dude's like, I'm a Scorpion main, and he looks up at the sky and he's just going through his options.
Yeah, exactly.
I can go with Storm Scorpion, Cloud Scorpion, Sky Scorpion. I've got.
Yeah.
Cloud. That's it.
Hey, honestly, one of the more cool origin stories, believe it or not, that I've heard.
Yeah, it was literally like Storms, Thunder. I don't know. I'm an 8-year-old, and I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm just typing shit in. Eventually, it works, and I just stuck with it. Anyways, so yeah, I was a big fan back in the Mortal Kombat 3 days. Played a 1, 2, 3. I actually played a lot of 4 as well. I skipped over what's it called, Deadly Alliance, because I didn't know it existed. It was one of those. Keeping in mind during this time, I had to learn by magazines and TV ads. The internet wasn't that thorough. Then I found Deception, loved Deception. Then Armageddon followed up shortly after. By the time Armageddon's out, I'm like 16 or something. Wasn't a big fan of Armageddon. Kind of lost a bit of love. Then they had that DC thing that nobody liked.
Whoa! So a couple of people.
Oh yeah, there's 4 or 5 people out there who like MK versus DC, sure. But MK9 rolled around. I actually still didn't pay a lot of attention. I played a little bit of the first Injustice. But then when MKX came around, I kind of looked at it. I'm like, you know what? I want to learn more about this game. I want to understand this like competitive side, because I really got introduced to esports through StarCraft and StarCraft 2. So I was actually a big fan of that stuff. And I was aware of like during the Mortal Kombat 9 days. I was aware of professional play, but I kind of watched a little bit. Just to say, I'm not a big fan of Mortal Kombat 9, so I watched a little bit. I didn't really get it. It wasn't really into it, whatever. So I kind of dropped it, went back to StarCraft for a while. But then when I came to MKX, I got in a little bit fairly early. So I started, checking out YouTube videos and stuff like that to kind of see what the community was about, what this stuff was about. And that's really where I got into it and started doing a lot of watching. Now, at that time, I understand frame data and stuff, but I don't really know a competitive mindset. So, I was watching, I forget what the series is called, but one of the beginner series from Ketchup and Mustard, because they had a long series. What is something to something?
Those were
I
so
don't remember.
good, man. Those were so good.
Oh, yeah, they were
back in the
they
day
were
to learn the
excellent.
characters. It was so good.
Yeah, for sure. So I started watching a lot of that, and then I was sort of involved with the community. I was on Discord, but I wasn't in streams. I wasn't any of that. Actually, I was watching the pro comp through one of those really shitty YouTube uploads where the YouTube upload gets 10 times the number of views than the actual upload from the organizers, just sapping all the money out. I know.
Motherfuckers.
I don't even remember what the I don't even remember what the YouTube channel was, but I just know that's where I got it because I didn't know where else to get it.
It does like 100 of them.
There's a lot.
For sure. And then Injustice 2 came out, and I didn't give the slightest bit of a fuck, and I completely disappeared from the scene for 2 years. Just evaporated immediately.
Damn.
I was like, I don't care for this at all. Then MK11 gets announced, rolls around, and I see it as like a pop-up on my phone. The twins had done like a reaction video to the MK11 announcement. I'm like, oh, MK11's coming out. What? So then I started jumping into streams. I wanted to see more of the scene. And funny fact, I started following your Twitch channel because I thought you were an Unbreakable sub main. I was like, Unbreakable sub's cool. I'm gonna follow this guy.
At the time, I was only playing MKX while waiting for MK11. Oh, exactly. No, I was playing a lot of Unbreakable.
Yeah, you were playing Unbreakable, and then like you did it for like 2 days, and then never again. You didn't pick that character up again. I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'll still on the look.
I'm already following him now. Might as well just keep going with it.
Yeah, exactly. It was that kind of thing. Then he started doing some extra stuff, like he started doing like trivia and stuff on stream. I was following that stuff, so I was like, oh, you know what? I'm trying to get involved with the scene. I'll toss my sub. We'll see where that goes. There's a number of people I tossed the sub early on, but then kind of waned out. Aquaman and Ketchup and Mustard are one of the few that I stuck with for a while.
My introduction to you was, I would say my introduction to you online was you spamming both of our dab emotes everywhere. Like you'd be spamming my dab emote everywhere, and then the Ketchup and Mustard dab everywhere, just in every channel. And that's how your name kept sticking in my head until we eventually met offline, which is I'm sure where your story's going with that.
Yeah. So
and sadness, profound sadness.
Well, yeah, spoilers. So this kind of all led to me just the message that you guys kept sending. Again, the two people that I watch the most, well, three people, I guess. Ketchup and Mustard and you. Those are the ones I follow the most.
Who's the third?
And one of the messages you guys got out consistently was, get out there, go to a local, go to this stuff, get involved with this stuff. I'm like, all right, you know what? They keep saying it. I'll give it a try. So there were two locals in Toronto, Toronto Top Tiers and Landlords Gaming. So I just started to pop into those locals, and I had a lot of fun. It wasn't a huge scene, admittedly. The Toronto scene, not very many people, 4 or 5 in total. I can give shout outs to, Turbo Taco, Artemiski, the collector player. Shit, I don't remember his name. Anyway, it's fine. What is
obviously didn't have a long lasting effect. Did this? Local,
he did well. The thing that was long lasting was his collector play, because it was absolutely obnoxious. I saw people like leave the venue because of that collector play. But either way, then kind of watching it. I'm trying to work on it, getting better, and then I'm like, you know what? LCQ is coming down. I've never really left Canada. All the people are going to be there. It's going to be a big show. The finals. There's all this hype and promise around it. And then I was just like, you know what? I'll just compete. I'll just, screw it. I'm just going to hop on a plane, compete. I have enough money. I can afford to do this. Because if it's not clear, I also have a full-time job as a software developer. So I decided to hop on. I decided to hop on. I'm going to head down there. I'm going to try my hand at the LCQ. And actually, my first opponent was Vendetta. So I spent weeks with the Scorpion Discord and the guys at the local practicing Johnny Cage. That's it. I didn't care about anything else, just Johnny Cage.
I'm so proud of you for doing that too, because that usually takes a long time to get to seeing who you're playing and then doing the proper homework on it ahead of time.
Yeah.
Like you're already at meta like 7, dude, which is kind of nuts. Just
So-
to give you some props. But continue.
So it was the kind of thing like the Scorpion players said that like Johnny Cage players always assume that they can press whatever they want after the on plus force balls, right? So, but Scorpion can teleport out of that. So if he goes for the button, you can just teleport out and punish it. So it's kind of giving me that extra little bit of meta. And my whole goal here, right? One game. I wasn't going to beat him. There was no world that I was going to beat Vendetta, right? But one game. That's what I wanted. I just wanted one game, get that, go out. Then I was fighting a Cabal player next. Didn't even practice Cabal. I don't care. I'll go 2-0-2. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But I wanted that one game on him. And I get there, and I'm all ready. I've been doing all this practice. I land in Chicago, and and I get this email, and I'm just like, the motherfuckers cancel it. And I'm messaging people. I'm messaging Mustard. I'm messaging Mitsuons at the time as well, because I had his information. I was like, the fuck do I do now? And they're like, well, there's like this thing that's going on tonight. So I jump in an Uber. I go down to this local. I don't remember at all what it was called. I go the wrong way because
Ignite something.
Maybe something like that.
Yeah.
I then proceed. There's 2 locations. One's closed. I don't know this. I Uber all the way the fucking wrong side of the city. Then I Uber all the way back to the other side of the city to be able to go to this local. It's now like 11:30 p.m. or some shit. And then I make my fatal mistake. I walk in there and realize I don't fucking know anyone. I look around and I see these faces. I'm not gonna walk up to like Gurr and be like, "Hey, I'm a person you've never met. Talk to me and entertain me." Like I'm not gonna do that. I saw what's his name? The guy who commentated with you all the time, Ultra David. I saw Ultra David. He looked fucking miserable. He looked so mad. He looked
Yeah.
But then I happened to find Scare Tactics, which is who is a UK player that came from the UK. So you think my story's bad?
Yes.
That motherfucker came from the UK. And I saw him there wandering around. I'm like, that's Scare Tactics. I have someone I can fucking talk to. So I jumped to him. We hang out, whatever. Then eventually I managed to get back. I get snuck. I don't know if I should say this, but I got snuck into the players' lounge by Mustard. And that's where I got to meet some people. I got to meet you, Aquaman. I think we played 6 or 8 games. You bodied me in every single one of them. You gimmick the fuck out of me. You vocalize the gimmicks before doing them too. You're
that's
like,
what's crazy. Yeah,
that's the head games right there. That's the head games that Mr. Aquaman brings.
And then I did that. I played a Derpy. I think I went 29-1 against Derpy. And then you guys went to play poker, and I headed out with the twins for pizza, and that's basically the whole story. That's where and naturally, and
and then COVID until now, and that's it.
Exactly.
That's the whole story.
That's exactly it. COVID until now, and I've lost all of my competitive spark. I'm an old man. I had to struggle with that to begin with, and I'm just like, I went out there, everything's gone to shit, the world sucks, and so I've just kind of given up. I'm just like, I don't need to be competitive. I'll just continue watch. I'll continue supporting, and that's fine. I'll still attend my locals when they start back up, but probably not going to compete again. Probably not worth the effort.
Interesting.
Yeah, that was actually going to take me into the next point, because obviously you're known as, big spectator, big supporter of the whole scene. I was going to ask, you had that situation where you were going to go compete. You're doing the homework. You did more homework than I've ever done when I went to go compete at anything. So I wanted to know, do you have any plans to maybe bring it back and try your hand at competitive, maybe try to do commentary, maybe try to do something else, or are you just okay with, I'm just going to sit back and just enjoy it for what it is?
It really is I've got too many things on my plate to be able to continue trying to do this. As I mentioned, full-time job there at the programming job that I have, and then I spend 20 hours a week working on Last Shot Studios, and then I'm juggling 30-year-old people problems, like trying to buy a house in Toronto. Pro tip: it's $600,000 for a shoebox. Like, that's not a joke. In this crazy city. So I'm juggling a lot of things. Like, it comes down to it's like I'm never going to be particularly good, and being casual with it's fine. It's not that big of a deal. I got a chance to try it out. It was fun, but I'm not going back to competing. I don't imagine I'll do commentary Maybe like if someone's desperate for another head on a mic and they've literally got no better choice than me, I'll give it a try. But
Well, listen, I'll
that'll
tell
be
you
the
what.
extent of it.
You have a really smooth voice, and you're already out swagging me, and I don't like it. So I'm glad you don't want to be a commentator. I appreciate it.
You would just kick Aquaman right to the curb. You'd be done if you came onto the scene.
Every single time someone's like, "Man, I don't want to be a commentator," I'm like, "Thank God," because I suck, and it'd be pretty easy to overthrow someone like me. That's all I'm saying. But
I don't know about that.
CloudScorpion, I actually did not.
You had absolutely fantastic chemistry with Ultra David. Absolutely fantastic chemistry. You guys worked together brilliantly.
The first year of the Pro Tour was the first time even I had gone back and listened to specifically mine and his commentary. And one in particular was CEO Top 8, where it was the first time I listened back and was actually impressed by my own commentary. The first time ever in my life about Scorpion. And probably since then. Even right now I kind of hate it. But that was a little bit of a hot streak even I thought I was on. But that also gives you an insight to even someone like me that's been doing it forever will wake up every morning and say I'm complete dog shit at what I'm doing. Even for a living, which is what's crazy. And I didn't even know about you that you had your full-time work even outside of Last Shot Studios, which makes, I mean, you're out here even for casually playing the game and casually watching and supporting. From experience, how much you do, you're a busy guy, man. Holy shit.
I am relatively busy. I actually keep track of like how I spend my free time, and I don't have a lot of it. but speaking of the job, like the job is an absolute necessity because Hassan and I, we invest all of the money into the company ourselves. So that the Last Shot Studios requires a decent chunk of change to fund. You know, we've got 4 people we're paying. They're all part time, of course, because we can't afford that much. But we've got 4 people we're paying. We've got to pay for any advertisements, any software that people need, machines, hardware, whatever. So we've got to pay all that. So having the job is not an option. I need to be able to fund this stuff and continue living in this crazy city.
That is kind of exactly how I started Kolosseum and got into running tournaments. That was my kind of game studio, and it ended up being the Kolosseum Studios. I was just working full time and started to do events and fund them myself and go into extreme debt and get nothing back and go, well, fuck. And fast forward a couple years later, made a couple bucks off of it, but still in that phase of investing in to try to build something that could be sustainable, but while also looking on the outside to try to fund it. And that's what part of the grind is, man. And nothing but respect for even doing it. So shout out to that. That's awesome.
Man, you're doing a great job yourself, and like you got to recognize the difficult, like when it comes to a game studio, we're making a product. The challenging part with it is that we have to hold out until we have a product done, right? Yeah. Or start a Kickstarter and try and scam people out of their money early on. That's a joke. I'm not scamming anyone. Please don't take that to heart. Anyway, but that's it. It's a different beast. It's a different beast than what you're doing with your stuff, because you have to be more agile with what you're doing. You're going to put on a tournament and say, okay, what did we get out of this? How do we need to change it immediately? Because in the end, you don't have a final product you're trying to sell. You're not really working. You're working on more an ongoing basis. So you require a level of agility that we don't necessarily need.
Yeah, there's a duplicitous edge when it comes to that kind of live experience that we give, where a lot of it is organic and a lot of it does happen on the fly, and there's a lot that goes in prior, and there's a lot of different issues that you can run into and a different audience that we're catering to versus who you're catering to, right? Mm-hmm. And absolutely there's a ton of levels to both, but again, nothing but props for you doing that. I got a question for you as a developer though. Mm-hmm. As a developer, or as someone with a developer's mindset like you do, and I hate to ask this after you said that you don't want to play the game competitively anymore, but yeah. As a developer, would you, this is just a flat out question, would you change anything about MK11, or what would you change about MK11 from a developer standpoint? Just a random question.
Okay, so it's a bit of a weird question. So, like from a developer standpoint, developers are not necessarily designers, right? So, from a development standpoint, I could look at the technical aspects of the game and say, these things could be improved. But nothing in particular stands out. Obviously, there's some interesting choices that MK11 has made. For example, they're running a heavily edited version of Unreal 3 of the Unreal 3 engine.
Which is crazy, by the way.
We're at 5.
Mm-hmm.
We're at Unreal 5 at this point, and no
one talks about that, Cloud.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I feel like it's one of those situations that, due to their release schedule, because they got to pop out. Well, they used to, at least. They had to pop out a new game every 2 years, right? So there was a limitation of what they could do, how they could jump, because when you jump engines, you've got a lot of tooling, you've got a lot of supporting software and stuff like that. You've got a lot of pipelines that your workers are used to that you now have to abandon. You have to retrain workers on new software. You have to abandon old tools that you've made or recreate them. So there's a lot of stress there. Where if they have a longer development cycle, they could take that extra time to swap engines more frequently. But the other interesting thing to think about that is, especially if you've seen MK11 on either PC or on Xbox Series X or PS5, is the game is gorgeous, and a lot of that tech is in-house. Like, they have built up a lot of that tech themselves, because that's not stuff the Unreal 3 engine can do out of the box.
Mm-hmm.
So it is one of those things. I do expect them. They have to change. Like, they can't stay on Unreal 3 forever, I imagine. Maybe I'm wrong. But they are going to have to make a switch over, and maybe what they're currently doing with you almost always they announce a game and then the game's ready, and then they kill the previous game, and then they announce the next game and the game's ready and they kill the previous game. I'm going to use this in air quotes, but MK11's been dead for what, 4 months now? Dead, so not supported. I should say that instead. No longer being supported for 4 to 6 months now, something like that. And we don't, or has it been that long? Maybe only 2 months. Anyways, we don't know what they're doing next. We don't see it. Like, they haven't put anything out. We got rumors, of course, but those are 99.9% of the time bullshit. And you throw enough darts, you'll hit a board even if you're blindfolded. So I imagine some of this delay is probably them switching engines. So we'll see what that entails. Like, maybe the game gets a very different look and feel as a result of this engine change. They get some extra new details that when you switch to the most recent Unreal Engine, you get a lot of fancy stuff. You get subsurface scattering. You get various types of what's it called? Ray tracing technology support and stuff like that.
I'm almost scared at how good their next game might look if they do make the switch. That's what really frightens me, because I still will boot up my PC version, do chapter 1 of story, and just sit back with a bowl of popcorn and watch how beautiful it is. Still to this day, it's gorgeous.
It really is, and it is a testament to the technology that they've developed. They'll probably get some supporting technology, of course. They work with I can't remember, QLock. Is it QLock? I think they work on the PC and Shiver. I don't remember what they do exactly. I think they're just another porting company. But one of the other advantages, potentially, it depends on how they go about this, but if they do jump to the most recent Unreal Engine, and they don't have to make a lot of tweaks, that could mean much better cross-platform support. Because Unreal 5 works just as well on PC as it does on PS5, as it does on Xbox Series X. Not on Switch, of course, but Switch was a little iffy.
It still doesn't work on Switch, if I'm being honest with you.
No. I can tell you,
I bought it to practice with and train with, and after the first time it lagged because I put out one animation on the screen. I was
absolutely.
like, nope, I'm good.
Yeah, funny enough, there's a couple of characters that are particularly bad for this. Some people play it and I don't see any problems or whatever. It's like, okay, are you I don't know, a Baraka player or something that doesn't have a lot of particle effects, something that doesn't bring out other assets and stuff, then that game runs not too bad. But almost anything that has a constant animation causes the Switch to slow down quite a bit. So you play Kotal Khan, totems and god rays destroy the frame rate. Scorpion, if you buff the spear up, the frame rate drops by 20%. It changes all the timings. Yeah, so either way,
I think Gears was really bad too. Yeah,
Gears could be bad. Yeah, so there's a lot of that stuff going on the Switch. I don't know what they're going to do with Switch. Like, I can't imagine they don't support it, but we'll see. Maybe Unreal 5 has got a slimmed down version for Switch, and they'll just use that, because that really is one of the biggest advantages, especially in terms of cross compatibility. The Unreal Engine developers, they give a shit. They're building an engine, so they're like, yeah, no, this has to work perfectly on everything. So if they're switching engines, we could see that. We could see a sudden just one-to-one parity in the next Mortal Kombat game, and as a result, to pair with that, we might see just day one full support of crossplay as well. One of the only obstacles standing in the way of that is going to be Sony, because Sony still has their anti-consumer. You have to pay us damages if the PlayStation isn't the number. Doesn't like, I think, is make 80% of the audience of that game. So if it's less than that, the company has to pay Sony damages. Like, some crazy stuff came out of that court case between Apple and Epic. So that's one of the things that could stand in the way, but we'll see how that goes.
So we spent a lot of
that
time
was a really long-winded
about...
technical question that I
fine.
just answered.
But that was good. That's one of the reasons we wanted to have you on, because you have a kind of like the lenses you look through, no pun intended here, from a game developer standpoint, is definitely something that we don't have, right? We're just players. We just sit here, we get the game, we load it up, we play. Like, you actually know to some extent what the back end actually looks like in putting all this shit together. But I want to move this over to your game, specifically the Cartesian Project. Now, something that always interests me is the rollout of something, right? The marketing rollout. So obviously, before the game comes out, it's making the game, making sure it works, testing out the bugs, QA, all that, making sure you can get it to the consumer. What does the post rollout, like, the game's done, you shipped it, what does it look like day to day from a game developer standpoint after the game is out? Do you guys talk about YouTube? Do you guys talk about Twitter? Or is it just making sure the game continues to work?
So it's an interesting question to ask to a developer that's never released anything.
It'll get you thinking about it now, though. It'll get you thinking about it.
Is there a plan right now? And will you formulate a plan after that question?
So there is a plan. There's there's multiple components to this. So on the development side, of course, depending on how the Kickstarter goes, as part of the Kickstarter stretch goals, there's promised DLC. One of the common traps that indie developers get into, like what's it called, Yacht Club Games, they promised free DLC, and then they produced it over the next 10 years, and they gave it all for free because they promised to. If we reach those stretch goals, obviously the first thing we're getting to is the DLC. It's in our stretch goals. If we reach it, we've got to do it. So in terms of development, that's the next immediate step. Of course, there's also, depending on if it makes enough money, depending on a lot of factors, there's also looking at the next game. You've got to start development on that stuff early. Are you going to keep the same engine? Are you going to switch over to a new engine? What kind of technology do you want to support? Do you want to keep it similar to the previous game? Do you want to make it a new game? Do you want to make it a sequel? So there's a lot of questions there, and a lot of that will completely depend on how the audience adheres to the game. If they love it and they want more of it, then that will drive that. If no one buys it, then the company probably dies, because we've already invested quite a lot of money. We can't, we don't want to do that a second time for a massive loss.
Jeez.
But on the other side of it, there is the marketing. Now, I will admit that I'm not an expert on marketing by any means. So we do have a marketing manager who runs our marketing and social media, and that's Will. And I think Aquaman and Rickety Rouse have met him. So he's got plans for how you keep this going, and he's doing research, and there's always the possibility that we reach out to additional marketing firms and whatnot to get support on this stuff. Because if it does make it past that line, if the initial sales are good enough to keep things afloat, then obviously we can invest more into marketing it. Because a game isn't, especially with indie games aren't dead after the first week. You look at the AAA games, a lot of them make the vast majority of their sales really early on, and then it peters out. So, some of them more so than others, but indie games aren't quite like that. Usually they got a slower burn with with their sales. Sometimes it starts out slow. The right content creators pick it up, promote it, and then it explodes. Like what Among Us was out for 2-3 years, and then it became then it became the most popular game on the planet. So it will really depend. We'll have to keep an eye on it. We do have some plans, but again, to be completely honest, they are novices' plans because we're not experts on this topic. We're going to see how this goes. We don't know what the future holds for us, so it's play it by ear.
I feel like you've taken anything away from your experience in this space that you could apply towards that, like with the marketing or a certain way to kind of showcase your game or where to promote it or anything like that? Is there anything that you can take away from the competitive community that would help in any way over there at Last Shot Studios? And that could even be outside of marketing.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of elements that obviously we keep an eye on the competitive community. One thing we know, unless it explodes in this way, which I don't expect it to, but like making a competitive game is tough. We're going to have a multiplayer, but it's going to be casual. We're not making leaderboards. We're not making tournament modes. We're not doing that kind of stuff, mostly because it is incredibly difficult to lock that stuff down in a secure way. You looked at certain games explode enough that they can then afford the infrastructure after the fact. But you look at the first year or so of Fall Guys, it was absolutely plagued with hackers. Like it was difficult to get into a lobby. After a little while, it was difficult to get into a lobby where there wasn't a hacker who was definitely going to win. So it's that kind of thing. It's really difficult to try to aim to be a competitive game, and knowing you don't have the finances or the infrastructure to support it as a competitive game. So on that front, I would say that's one element of it. We look at the competitive scene, we look at what their expectations are, we recognize we can't meet them. So that is an element of it. And then on the marketing side, when it comes to with our work with Kolosseum and talking to people in the NRS community as a whole, there is one aspect to it, which is of course that marketing's tough. It's hard to get eyes on things. It's hard to get people to care. Here I'm actually going to talk to the audience for a second. It's kind of one of those things that it takes very little effort, but it's a little bit of effort that a lot of people don't want to put forward. But you really, really should. Like, if you want to, even if you don't, like, let's say the Cartesian Project, you don't care, but you care about what Aquaman's doing. I know it's going to take you 30 seconds to sign into an account and click a button. I know but it's really a 30 seconds you should be willing to pay, because it's kind of you've got that waterfall effect, that rainfall effect, that no single raindrop feels responsible for the flood. And it works both ways. If you're the one sitting there saying, I don't feel like supporting, someone else will support, well, maybe no one is supporting, and maybe you have to be the one to take that step forward. And in the exact inverse is that, that tiny bit of support you are putting forward makes a huge difference when everyone does it. Everyone takes that 2 seconds and suddenly it explodes, and it's the most successful thing that a content creator has done. And it really just, I know it's that 2 seconds of effort that nobody wants to do, but it really does make a difference for content creators. And when it comes to a lot of viewing style systems, Twitch, YouTube, stuff like that, it's really, really easy for the audience to be passive. It's really easy to watch a video and then get off and hop off. Don't hit that like button. You don't hit subscribe. Don't leave a comment. You don't do any of those things. And it's really easy to just jump from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. And the algorithm almost forces you, it kind of compels you to do it. But you do have to stop and recognize that, even if it's not maybe immediately the most interesting thing to you at the time, if it supports the content you're interested in, if it supports the people that you care for, you really should just take that 2 seconds and take that effort and put it forward.
Very well said. Very well said. I want to give you a second now to kind of break down to the people what the Cartesian Project is. What can they expect? When is it going to be coming out? Sell it as hard as you can. Tell us what it is.
Sell your video game right now, Cloud.
This is your chance.
Man, I should have brought the marketing guy in. Okay. It's funny. The headline that we had you reading, what was it? First-person obstacle clearance game. That is the definition. Fast-paced obstacle clearance. See, obstacle clearance game. That comes from two programmers making a bad decision on how to name something. Okay, because we looked at it and we're like, well, it's basically a platformer, but there's no platform, right? Because we found out first-person landing on a platform, that sucks. It's not fun. It's hard to do. Like, you can't really eyeball that shit. So we don't have any platforms in the game. There's no platforms. It's a first
I've
person
been lying
platform
to
without.
people this whole time.
Yeah,
Well, that's the
some
thing.
outdated marketing materials.
So that's when people say it's like, that's why I told you it's like, yeah, it's an obstacle clearance game because there's no platform, so we can't call it a platformer, but you're trying to overcome obstacles. That's not a catchy title. What's his name? Ragnarok, like on stream, kind of grilled me a little bit for it. He's like, the hell does that mean? Obstacle clearance. I'm like, all right, we'll workshop it. We'll workshop it. We'll call it a platformer because people at least know what to expect there.
Explain it to us.
So the Cartesian Project is honestly, first of all, it's a 7-year project. It's already 7 years old. We've been at this forever. Okay.
Whoa.
And you would not. Well, it's that kind of thing. It's a weekend project, so we've got a day and a half to work on it. So that the weeks fly by when it comes to developing something. If we were able to work on it, during the week, full time stuff, this would have taken a lot less time. But we only have the time to work on the weekend. We all work full time, so it's a bit of a time stretch. But it started out as a side-scrolling platforming game, and is not that at all. Because we sat down and looked at it like, does the audience really need another indie side-scroller? And then we decided no, they don't. So we switched it to first person, and then we started tweaking it. And with the game we sort of ended up building towards was a game that's it's got some Quake vibes to it. All right, in Quake's a first person shooter, right? But there's a really heavy emphasis on the movement in Quake. You're doing those really fast dashes. You're kind of bouncing off walls. You're going all that
arena
speed.
shooter movement.
Yeah, exactly. So that speed is an element that first-person games don't tend to try to lean into too much. So what we've done is we've gone, it's not a racing game, but it's sort of a racing game. You play as the Sentinel, which is this bipedal, so two-legged mechanical walker, and his whole thing is agility. So what you're doing is you're infiltrating all these various bases. And you're trying to collect this resource known as ire. I'm not going to get too deep into the story, but your ultimate goal is to collect.
There better be a whole book on the lore of the Cartesian Project available.
We have.
Oh, that sounded like there was a maybe. Hold on a second.
We have what's called I think it's called a lore Bible. But basically, yeah, we have pages and pages and pages of lore already. But the goal is that you're infiltrating these bases and you're trying to collect this resource known as ire. And ire is this resource that's if you think like fusion generators and whatnot, it's something that it's a resource that can very, very effectively translate mass into energy, more or less. So you're able to use this thing as an incredibly high-powered energy resource, and you use that to be able to traverse to all of the other facilities that are surrounding the planet Iridani C. Iridani C being this incredibly volatile planet that the game takes place around. And the ultimate goal is to actually make it down to the surface of the planet. So the emphasis on the game is on infiltration and speed. So you're going to enter these areas and they're full of security bots. They're full of security cameras, locking doors, that kind of thing. And your whole goal is to get in and out, in most cases, get in and out as fast as you can. So the walker has got a very good run speed. He's got a very powerful leap. So the main mechanic you're doing in this game is jumping, which is again why we kind of lean into calling it a platformer, even though there aren't platforms. And then the other element, the other core element that he has is wall jumping. So the idea is that you kind of walk into a room and you have to make a split second analysis of the room, be like, that's the place I want to go, that's the place I want to avoid, and get moving. So that would mean maybe there's a whole bunch of crap on the ground that's going to kill you or whatever, and you need to avoid that. So what do? You jump to the wall adjacent to you, then you hop off that wall and you make a quick turn, jump off the. So it's almost like controlling some high speed mechanical flea that you're just bouncing all over these levels to be able to get through to the end, trying to avoid as many of the obstacles and the things that are trying to trap you or kill you as you go along. You've also got some supporting technology, so you've got throughout the game you'll be able to gain these upgrades. So you'll be able to pick up these shield batteries. You'll be able to pick up, these these hover feet that allow you to hover in place for a little bit of time to give you just a little bit extra mobility, a little bit of extra leeway. If you have a tendency to not pinpoint where all the threats are right away, and you have a tendency to crash face first into them, that extra little bit of shield can help so that you can not die immediately every time you enter a room. And that's really what we're trying to emphasize. One of the things that we did somewhat recently, we've been doing this for a while now, but somewhat recently, has been the multiplayer, and that's actually where we play the multiplayer every 2 weeks with the entire team, and this is really where one of the first times where we sit down and we're like, no, we got something here. We've been playing this for months and months, and this is still really engaging. And it's one of the few competitive games that will actually make me like scream. Like I will be in the lead in trying to get to the final chamber of the facility, and I'll be in the lead, and then I'll make a jump that was just a bit too hasty, and then I'll see like a red bomb, so the red bombs explode and kill you instantly, and I'll see a red bomb in my peripheral vision. I'm like, I can't avoid it. Fuck. I cannot avoid this thing now. And because
more salty than Mortal Kombat, I thought that was impossible.
Yeah. It's kind of a thing. It's not too. It's a little salty. With Mortal Kombat's very high pressure constantly. Like you let your guard down for a split second, and your opponent's going to kill you, and it's all 1-on-1, so there's that extra pressure. Not to call out people who play team games or anything, but team games, free for alls and stuff, those aren't quite as high pressure because you're not looking at the situation like, oh, that one guy is better than me. You can look at it being like, oh, my team sucks. Oh, this was just an unfortunate situation. I got double teamed. You can make a lot of excuses for yourself. In a fighting game, you can't make those excuses. So it's not super salt generating, but I do get suddenly very stressed when I see I've made a mistake. Because it really does give you the feeling that you're really, once you get it, it takes a little while to get used to it because the control scheme and the gameplay style really isn't like any game I've played before. But once you get it, it feels like you're really good at it because you're just hitting those edges, you're hitting those corners, you're making those perfectly arced jumps that get you through these narrow gaps that you could go the long way, but you're in a race. So you're going to take the short way, and you're gonna whiz by a handful of lasers, maybe cutting a little bit too close, just to get that little bit of an edge on your opponent. And it really is a game that makes you feel like you're really doing a good job. But it's those kind of things that you're feeling like you're really doing a good job, and then you make a mistake, and you're like, oh, it's all been undone. It's all been undone, and you just smash into it, you die, and then you got to restart from the beginning. You have to restart from the beginning of the facility and go again.
That's right.
And now, if everyone dies,
save points.
Exactly, no save points.
The return of no save point. Screw you, kids.
If everyone yeah, right. Given the average facility only has like 7 or 8 rooms, sometimes up to 10, 15. The 15 ones can take maybe 10 to 15 minutes to make it all the way through. These you're going fast, so these aren't taking too long. But one of the other things about it is that it's not a Mario jump, right? It's not a Mario style jump where you jump in the air and then you go left and then you go right and then you go left and you with all that air control. You are committing. You make that jump, you've committed to it. Either you better have some type of booster ready to correct your fuck up, or you're careening whatever you just chose to do. So it really does force you to make those quick analysis, make those quick snapshot decisions, and just commit to it. You got to commit to it. If you're going to be super cautious, then you're going to lose. But if you go a little too quick, you got to take the half a second to look around. If you go a little too quick, then you're screwed. And then the other aspect of it is a lot of games that are sort of similar like this. You could think of speed running games, right? Where a lot of speed running is memorization, right? In the Cartesian Project, the levels are procedurally generated. That's another aspect that we find really fun, is that when we go to play, we're seeing that level for the first time every time.
That's what I was going to bring up was how are you going to avoid that? But I remember I luckily have actually asked you guys if it was procedurally generated, and that's what's going to keep it spicy every single time you go in, which is incredible.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of time went into the development of this procedural level generation engine, and it's still got some work. There are still some elements that are a little too overpowered here. Sometimes this gets a little too clunked up, stuff like that. So it's still a work in progress. But that engine has really been a core part of our development for a long time. We've probably been working on that by itself for 2 to 3 years. And the results we got are really good. It's got a lighting algorithm on it to make sure that areas aren't too dark but aren't too lit up, stuff like that. That there's a good density of threats. That there's always a safe path for the walker if they choose to find that safe path. So there's the Walker Sentinel. The old name was it for the Walker before we thought of a new name for it. So that's an element of it that really does feel fresh. Like we're not the first game to do procedural level generation. We're probably not the first game to do it in 3D. But it comes together in a way that doesn't feel super contrived. It doesn't feel super repetitive. One of the things that we've really tried to make sure is that we don't allow the system to be repetitive. Sometimes we look at it, you're like, it'd be nice if this thing always did this, but then we're like, no, we're not going to put that restriction on because then that will get repetitive. We don't want repetition. We want this this exploration, this level of rediscovery of the level every time you enter it. And sometimes, it comes down to a thing where you're like, you come up to a ledge and there's a bomb right in front of it that you couldn't have possibly seen and you die because you chose to climb up the ledge instead of, taking the long way around. And that's, sometimes you're like, well, that's bullshit. Well, it's like, well, for next time. Now, like random generators that you've seen on ROM hacks and whatnot, there is a seed though. So if you do want to return to a level you've played before, you just keep the seed. The seed is broken up into 3 components, which is a letter name. So a first component like a Kesco, or that's one example of one of them. Kesco, then 3 numbers, so 7, 2, 1, doesn't matter whatever the number is, and then finally a difficulty rating, which is alpha, beta, or gamma. In terms of, speaking of things that we need to polish up, the gamma one is basically impossible. None of us have ever completed a gamma level. It's way too hard.
Leave it as is. Leave it as is, and let someone figure it out. Cloud. That's all I'm going to say. Is if you give these gamers a challenge, that's what might sell it too a little bit.
It's a challenge. It's a ridiculous challenge. I think what we'll do is maybe we'll tone down gamma and we'll make an omega. And if you want to play something real stupid, go ahead, choose the omega level and cross your fingers because you're probably not getting through. Technically, the levels constraints are still met. There is a safe path. There's always a safe path for the Sentinel to travel, and you do have to just find it. But that said, the bots the bots are going to be aggressive. The red missile. So we have color coordination in the game, and they're associated with the different factions. If you read the Kickstarter page, you'll get a whole bunch of lore about the factions and the planet of Iridani and some of the history. And we've got a whole lot more that we haven't put there that you'll discover throughout the game. But these faction colors, they all mean something important. So if you see a red laser, that will kill you. By contrast, if you see a yellow one, that's actually going to increase your gravity index. So that means it'll tie you to the floor more. So if you're in an area that's relatively flat, you can kind of see a yellow thing and be like, you know what, I can survive that. I can take this hit and just plow through it because the gravity isn't going to impact me too much in this area that I'm currently in. By contrast, you get hit by a gravity effector, you've got a jump to make, you are screwed because you will not overcome it now because you're just going to drag to the ground too quickly. And then as part of the whole collection of faction technology and whatnot, then there's also each of the factions, you also can get an upgrade for the faction that actually helps you combat their security systems and stuff like that. So the peacekeepers are the ones that have the gravity effector. So if you get hit by the gravity effector, your gravity index increases. But the peacekeepers also have a technology for wall scaling. So if you do get hit by that and you have the wall scaling technology with you, you can literally just walk up the wall. You don't need to jump anymore. You just walk up it. So there's a lot of very dedicated thinking and planning to how all of these mechanics play together. And one of the fun things going into the levels is seeing what people choose, because there's 5 factions and there's 3 upgrades per faction. And when you're doing a free play or a multiplayer style, you just get to choose what you get. In the campaign, it's a little different. You'll be gated with the upgrades you get and stuff like that. But when you're playing multiplayer, one of the fun things is to look around at the options you have, and you're like, you know what? I think I'm going to be aggressive today, so I'll go ahead and get a shield. I'll get a booster, and then for my visor, I want the path visor so I can see the direction I need to go really quickly. So we've got 5 visors, 5 core abilities, which are mobility abilities, and then 5 things that we are currently calling batteries, which are like support technologies that, shields or things that can remove enemies from a level, stuff like that.
Well, damn, there is a lot more depth to that game than I even thought possible with the one sentence I had to work with during the Kolosseum, CloudScorpion. but it sounds absolutely insane. That's probably going to be our time here today. But I do want to say that it sounds incredible, and we're going to put the link to the Kickstarter in the description below. You guys can also visit playtcp.com. It's right there. Do us a favor. Just go to the Kickstarter, hit notify me on launch, CloudScorpion, right? Notify me on launch. Absolutely. And if you go there, it's got a ton of information, a couple of little animated GIFs as well, so you guys can see a little bit of what he's talking about. And that's probably going to do it for us this episode. Flashy, do you got anything else for us?
I think that's going to wrap it up, CloudScorpion. I know we're all super excited for the game. I believe you told us before we jumped on the call that it will be pending November 2022 for a release. Am I correct with that?
Yeah,
right, so November 2022. If
we get funded. If not, take a little longer. And I will also say to the viewers, first off, like and subscribe, because put the 2 seconds of effort, do it. But also, if you have any questions about it, just go ahead and leave a comment in the YouTube comments below, and I'll take some time to answer any questions you got. If you want to know anything about the game, what platforms it's going to be supporting, stuff like that, or really just anything, I don't care. Ask me my favorite type of pizza. I don't care. I'll get down there. I will answer any questions.
What our favorite type of pizza is in the YouTube comments below.
There you go.
And then we'll all answer.
And Aquaman, he might say pineapple, and he'll get canceled by the whole fucking community.
I will.
So if you want to see Aquaman canceled, comment down below what our favorite pizza is. But I think that's going to do it for us here at the Kolosseum for another episode of the KoloCast. CloudScorpion, thank you so much for coming on. Again, all the links are down below in the description. Check out the Cartesian Project. Check out the Kickstarter. Be sure to follow it. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll be back next Thursday with another episode. See you guys then.